Welcome back to Fox 5 News on the Hill. You know, this week, President Trump made waves when he discussed the possibility that by executive order, he would repeal the right in the U.S. Constitution for people to receive citizenship as a birthright. I want to discuss this a little further. Elizabeth Wydra is the president of the Constitutional Accountability Center, and Amy Swearer is a legal policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation. I'm going to start with you, Elizabeth. Can an executive order undo an amendment to the U.S. Constitution?
That is a very easy and short answer, and it is no.
No, you cannot.
You cannot. You cannot change the Constitution through an executive order. You cannot change the Constitution through legislation. The point of constitutionalizing something like birthright citizenship is exactly to take it away from the whim of politics or the caprice of Congress.
In fact, though, Amy, you can change the Constitution if you get the majority of the state legislatures and majority of the United States Congress to do it. So is this a real proposal by the administration, or is this simply cannon fodder for the run-up to the election?
Well, Elizabeth and I would actually agree that you can't change the Constitution itself by executive order. The question is, what would this executive order actually purport to do? So the president can absolutely order executive agencies to act in a manner consistent with a more limited interpretation of the Constitution, especially when the interpretation has not been clarified by the courts with regard to its application to illegal aliens and to people who are only here temporarily and are not permanent residents.
Now, not to go all constitutional scholar, but the 14th Amendment is not, wasn't written by the founders. It came in after the Civil War. However, Elizabeth, if the president were to write this executive order and put this into effect from his perspective, how quickly would this wind up in a federal court on appeal?
Like day one. So this is one of those things that actually has been asked and answered throughout history, which I think is fascinating. There were debates at the time the Birthright Citizenship Clause was written about whether or not it should apply to children of immigrants. At that time, they were worried about immigrant communities from Asia, from Roma or Gypsy communities, and they made very clear that it would apply to children of those immigrants, even when they committed trespass, even when they were not citizens of the United States. The point was that in America, if you are born here, no matter who your parents are, whether they're an unfavored minority group or a welcomed band of ancestors, you are born equally American if you're born on U.S. soil.
Amy, this trips up one of the questions we hear from conservatives sometimes. If they're talking about the Second Amendment, they want to hold firm to the language in the Second Amendment and don't change it and don't reinterpret it, and your modern views are not affected on this. So why is it a different argument when we're now talking about the 14th Amendment that suddenly this has to be open to interpretation?
Well, we'd argue it isn't a different argument. We would point to that same legislative history, and we come to a very different conclusion about what it says, especially with regard to individuals who only have a temporary allegiance. In fact, when you look at some of the language changes that take place, especially with the 1866 Civil Rights Act, there's indications that they actually explicitly kept changing the language in order to clarify that they did not intend to give birthright citizenship to people who only owed a, quote, sort of allegiance or a temporary allegiance.
But that was changed when the Constitution was written after the Civil Rights Act of 1866, where they made absolutely clear that the subject to the jurisdiction language, which is what Donald Trump and his allies keep using, was only meant to refer to people who, through legal fiction, like diplomats, or at that point in time in history, Native American tribes, were not considered to be on sovereign U.S. soil, which obviously undocumented immigrants are.
Thank you both for coming in and examining this. I'm sure we're not done talking about it. We're going to welcome you back. We thank you for spending part of your Sunday morning with us. We invite you to listen to our new Fox 5 On the Hill podcast, Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace, coming up right now. We'll see you next week.